Morning, everyone. This is the final day of the 5-day community retreat. I have been talking on the section of practice and persimmons in the book Opening the Hand of Thought. And this morning I'm going to talk on second paragraph of page 8. Here, in this section, Okumura Roshi talks on the 4 dharma seals, and yesterday I talked about the first dharma seal, that is impermanence. And today, this morning, I'm going to talk on the second dharma seal, that is suffering. But I have been suffering from yesterday. How can I talk this? I mean, this part, he is discussing about the second Dharma seal, continue until page 11, until the second paragraph of page 11. And he didn't really talk about suffering. He talks about suffering only the first paragraph. I mean, in the second paragraph of page 8. Rest of, more than 2 pages, he talks about something else. I don't know. I have a difficulty to understand what he's discussing and why he discussing this way. This is not like Okumura Roshi. So probably something is missing because this is a transcription based on transcription of his talk. And I don't think everything he talked was transcribed. So there must be something missing here. So I'm suffering. Anyway, let me read the second paragraph of page 8. For us to remain unclear about life and death can only result in our dying in great despair and bitterness. This point, this is what he discussed in the previous section about impermanence. This point leads to the second undeniable reality, that all things are suffering, or sangai kaiku. Suffering is not something that comes to attack me periodically. My whole life, as it is suffering. Nevertheless, I go around fighting with people, loving them, ignoring them, without ever being able to truly see that suffering. Actually, suffering in the deepest sense is all of that. In other words, as long as this matter of death remains unclear, everything in the world suffers. That is the meaning of the idea that all sentient beings are suffering. It is something that isn't talked about much simply because most people wouldn't have any idea of what it's about. So he just is saying no one understands what is suffering. Because it's kind of difficult for me to understand, this version I compared with the previous version. And I found that one sentence is lost. I think this is what Jisho did. And I think that is okay. I mean, I understand she's working hard. She worked hard to make this book better. four seals. Where is it? If you have this book, this version, page 23, in the same rest of the paragraph is the same, but one sentence is missing. In the new version, there's a sentence that is the meaning of the idea that all sentient beings are suffering, almost the end of the paragraph. And between this sentence and next sentence, there's one sentence in this version that is, this second undeniable reality is difficult to explain.
That's on page 23?
Yeah.
In what paragraph?
First paragraph, line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Did you find? Mm-hmm. This second undeniable reality is difficult to explain. And when he said this is difficult to explain, or not many people understand, he presents his own understanding usually, but here he doesn't. And in page 11, second paragraph, page 11 in this version, let me read this version. The paragraph I read and the paragraph, this paragraph is only two paragraphs he talks about suffering, or the second dharma seal. Let me read this paragraph in page 11. How does Mahayana thought differ from these ways of looking at things? The Buddhist approach from a Mahayana perspective might be described this way. By accepting and properly understanding the true nature of both accidental and undeniable reality, and by living in accord with this understanding, the matter of living and dying will cease to be such a terrible problem. Actually, this is not in this previous version. In this version, it's, the paragraph is end, the previous paragraph end such as, however, to view things from that perspective entails coming to the realization that when I die, I will be abandoned by truth. This is the same. The first end of the first paragraph on page 11. And next paragraph in this version is, but now, how does Mahayana thought differ from these views of looking at things? The Buddhist approach from a Mahayana perspective might be described in this way. And he said, the third undeniable reality is that all things lack substantial. So he started to discuss about the third dharma seal without discussing anything about the second, or the dharma seal of suffering. So, these two one or two sentence that is saying, by accepting and properly understanding the true nature of both accidental and undeniable reality, and by living in accord with this understanding, the matter of living and dying will cease to be such a terrible problem. This sentence is not in this version. That means this is added by Jisho. So this is not Uchimura Roshi's words. I appreciate what Jisho did, because what Uchimura Roshi said in the past 2 pages has nothing to do with discussion about dharma seal. He again discussing about contingent truth and absolute truth. And he didn't say anything about the connection between suffering and these two truths. So Disho tried to make a connection between the second Dharma seal and what Okumura Roshi is discussing about these two truths. But I think what he is discussing about these two truths has nothing to do with the Dharma seal of suffering. So I'm sorry for Jisho. But there must be something missing about his talk about suffering. So I have to find something. And what he said in the paragraph in page 8 is he usually say about suffering. That is, suffering, let's see, he says, well, maybe first I should explain what Sangai Kaiku means. Usually, this second Dharma seal is called Issai Kaiku. Kaiku. Issai means everything or all or everything. But sometimes it's also used, this word Sangai is also used. And Sangai means three world or realms. And in the end note of this book, I think this end note is made by Tom Wright. If you have this version, page 173, it is said, Sangai Kaiku, 1, 2, 3, 4, line 4 from the bottom. In page 173, it said, Sangai Kaiku, all things in the three worlds of past, present, and future are suffering. But this is a mistake. In this case, the third three world doesn't mean past, present, and future. This means three realms. That is a world of desire, and world of form or rupa, and world without rupa or without form or no form or formless. I don't know which is the best word. These are three words that refer to samsara. That means 6 realms are called three worlds. And three worlds refer, probably I already said yesterday, within 6 realms of samsara, hell, hungry ghost, animal, ashura, human, and heavenly beings. And there are 3 layers of heaven. And until first layer, or lowest layer of heaven, including other 5 realms, are called world of Desire. People or living beings are lived being pulled by desire. Even part of the heavenly beings lived by desire to fulfill their desires. And those heavenly beings are complete, their desires are completely satisfied. That is what the first part of heaven means. And the second and the third higher levels are called the world of form. That means they are not being pulled by desire. But this is a kind of a condition or stage of meditation. They are free from desire, but they still have forms. And third, the highest heaven, those heavenly beings are also free from rupas, or forms, or materials. So these two, the world of form and world of no form, are kind of a stage of meditation. But all of these 6 realms, including those form, world of form and no form, are called samsara. That means this is, even if you reach the highest point, even if you are free from material desire, you are still transmigrating. That means you cannot stay there forever. That is the difference between Christian paradise and heaven in Buddhism. We have to leave and go somewhere else. That is what transmigration means. This transmigration is really endless. So we cannot stay one fixed realm or condition. So what this expression Sangai Kaiku means, including the people or heavenly beings in the highest heaven who are free from desire or form, are still suffering. So actually everything happening in this world, everything we experience in this world of samsara are suffering. That is what this expression means. That's why yesterday I said, even the positive part of our life, joy or success or happiness or very, favorable conditions we may experience sometimes is part of suffering. That's why Okumura Roshi said, suffering is not something that comes to attack me periodically. My whole life as it is suffering. Wherever we are within this 3 world, everything is suffering. But we think, there are 2 sides. One side is positive, another side is negative. And when we are in this side, life is suffering. But when we are in that another side, life is not suffering. We can enjoy life. But what Buddha taught is that way of life. We may suffer and we may not suffer. All together is suffering. And we cannot control, or we cannot make decision. We cannot choose which side we are. We wish to be this side, but whether or not we wish or not, we have to move around. That way, that condition of human is itself suffering. We cannot make choice. We cannot put our life under my control. Things are not, doesn't, change in the way I wish. That is what is called suffering or dukkha in Buddhism. Nevertheless, I go around fighting with people, loving them, ignoring them, without ever being able to truly see that suffering. So we can see suffering in this side, negative or painful side of our life, of course. We think, Buddha taught life is only this side. But that's why many people think Buddhism is pessimistic. But what Buddha said is altogether, including both sides, both positive and negative side, life is suffering. So we need to be very careful about this point. That's why Okumura Roshi said in this version, this truth or dharma theory is really difficult to explain. It's different from our common understanding of what suffering is. And Okumura Roshi just said it's difficult to explain, and he didn't explain actually in this book. But I think he did. If he, brings some question, he is always giving at least his understanding. But it is missing in this book. So I have to talk then what Okumura Roshi means, not only Okumura Roshi, but what is suffering or dukkha in Buddhism. And I think this is what the Buddha taught by Walpola Lafra. Lafra is the same name with Shakyamuni Buddha's son. Anyway, basically this book explains Four Noble Truths. Four Noble Truths, yes. And of course, as you know, the first truth is suffering or dukkha. And his explanation, I think it's very clear and understandable. So I'd like to introduce his explanation of what dukkha means in Buddhism. Dukkha is D-U-K-K-H-A. First of all, Lafra said the English translation, suffering, is not good word for the translation alternative of dukkha. He said, the first noble truth is generally translated by almost all scholars as the noble truth of suffering, and it is interpreted to mean that life, according to Buddhism, is nothing but suffering and pain. Both translation and interpretation are highly unsatisfactory and misleading. It is because of this limited, free and easy translation, he said free and easy translation, and its superficial interpretation, that many people have been misled into regarding Buddhism as pessimistic. He said, first of all, Buddhism is neither pessimistic nor optimistic. If anything at all, it is realistic, for it takes a realistic view of life and of the world. Anyway, And next paragraph, he said, it is true that Pali word dukkha, Sanskrit dukkha, in ordinary usage means suffering, pain, sorrow, or misery. Those are possible translation of common meaning, ordinary meaning of dukkha, suffering, pain, sorrow, or misery. As opposed to the word sukha. Dukkha and sukha are pair. Suffering, pain, misery, and sukha is happiness, comfort, or ease. So this side is dukkha and this side is sukha. And this is a kind of ordinary common usage as a kind of a dichotomy. But when this word is used as a part of Four Noble Truths or the Four Dharma seals, the meaning is not that kind of dualistic. That is what he's going to say. So sukha meaning happiness, comfort, or ease. But the term dukkha as the first noble truth, which represents the Buddha's view of life and the world, has a deeper philosophical meaning and connotes enormously wider senses. It is admitted that the term dukkha in the first noble truth contains quite obviously the ordinary meaning of suffering. That means this side is of course included. But in addition, it also includes deeper ideas such as imperfection, impermanence, emptiness, insubstantiality. This impermanence and insubstantiality are two of the Four Dharma seals. And it's interesting, he used the word emptiness, even though he is a Theravada monk. It is difficult, therefore, to find one word to embrace the whole conception of the term dukkha as the first noble truth. And so, it is better to leave it untranslated. This is his opinion. Better not to translate and use this word dukkha than to give an inadequate and wrong idea of it by conveniently translating it as suffering or pain. So he is saying we should use the Pali or Sanskrit word dukkha instead of English word suffering. The Buddha does not deny happiness in life, he said. When he says there is suffering, so he doesn't negate or he doesn't ignore this side also. On the contrary, he admits different forms of happiness, both material and spiritual, for laymen as well as for monks. And I'll introduce one of the examples. He talks about happiness. this is from in the Buddha's words. This is a collection of Buddha's words from different Nikayas. If you have this book, page 127, this is a quote from one sutra or sutta from Pali Nikaya. And the title of this section is A Family Man's Happiness. A Family Man's Happiness. The Blessed One said to the householder Anathapindika. Do you know Anathapindika? He was a person who donated the land, not the land, but money, to buy the land for the first Buddhist monastery. The land was owned by the prince of Magadha. And this Anathapindaka was a merchant, and he was very rich. But merchant was, as a social, kind of caste, merchant was low. And it seems merchant didn't own so big land. So he wanted to purchase the land from the prince. And the prince didn't want to sell. And yet he repeatedly asked to sell. And as a joke, the prince said, if you covered the entire property with gold, I'll sell it. That means he rejected. But this merchant did, covered with almost entire property with gold. And I don't think this is true story. I don't know. But when it almost done, the prince was, looking at the work, and he said, he found that this person was really serious to buy the land and to donate for Buddhist Sangha. So he said, please leave that part for me. So actually this land was donated from this person, this merchant and prince, to the Buddha and Buddhist Sangha. I don't think this story is really true, historically true, but I think it was true that Buddha had a very, rich merchants and also kings and princes as his students. So he didn't request his student to give up all the wealth or status. He allowed, kings continue to be kings even after he became his students. And it is said both Theravada and Mahayana, the Buddhism was mainly supported by merchants. That's why Buddhism could go outside India. That means merchants are the people who traveled, outside India. And Buddhism Buddhist teaching and Buddha statue was carried by those merchants when they traveled along the Silk Road. So making money or income is not negated in the case of lay people, but Buddha taught how to use the wealth. So this householder was very rich merchant, and also Vimalakirti was very rich merchant. So Buddha said to this rich merchant, there are householder these 4 kinds of happiness, which may be achieved by a layperson who enjoys sensual pleasures, depending on time and occasion. Fat 4, the happiness of possession, the happiness of enjoyment, the happiness of freedom from debt, and the happiness of blamelessness. And fat householder is the happiness of possession. Here, a family man possesses wealth acquired by energetic striving, amassed, A-M-A-S-S-E-D, amassed by the strong strength of his arms, earned by the sweat of his brow. Righteous wealth, righteously gained. So wealth from righteous work, righteous effort is not negated or prohibited by Buddha. When he thinks, I possesses wealth acquired by energetic striving, righteously gained, he experiences happiness and joy. This is called the happiness of possession. And what householder is the happiness of enjoyment? Here, with the wealth acquired by energetic striving, amassed by the strength of his arms, earned by the sweat of his brow, righteous wealth, righteously gained. A family man enjoys his wealth and does meritorious deeds. So he encourage those kind of rich people use that wealth for meritorious deeds or virtuous deeds. When he thinks, with the wealth acquired by energetic striving and righteously gained, I enjoy my wealth and do meritorious deeds. He experiences happiness and joy. This is called the happiness of enjoyment. I don't think I need to read. He says almost the same thing about freedom from debt and with blameless conduct. Anyway, so he didn't deny or negate the happiness, especially for lay people. But what suffering or dukkha in the first noble truth is, let me read. Continue from this book. In the Anguttara Nikaya, one of the 5 original collections in Pali containing the Buddha's discourses, there is a list of happinesses, as I introduced, such as the happiness of family life and the happiness of the life of a recluse. Recluse means monks or hermit. The happiness of sense pleasures and the happiness of renunciation. The happiness of attachment and the happiness of detachment. Physical happiness and mental happiness, etc. but, he said, but all these are included in dukkha. Those happiness is included in dukkha. So this is the same as Okumura Roshi said and as I said. And even the very pure spiritual state of dhyana, dhyana is meditation, and this word dhyana is the HY, dhyana, is the original Sanskrit or Pali word for Zen, meditation. So even the very pure spiritual state of dhyana, attained by the practice of higher meditation, free from even a shadow of suffering in the accepted sense of the word, state which may be described as unmixed happiness, as well as a state of dhyana, another state of dhyana, meditation, which is free from sensations, both present and unpleasant, present and unpleasant sensation, and is only pure equanimity and awareness. Even these very high spiritual states are included in dukkha. That means, people in this world of meditation, world of form and world of no form, even these people's mental stage, mental condition, free from almost all sufferings. This kind of suffering are still included within dukkha. In one of the suttas of the Majjhima Nikaya, after praising the spiritual happiness of these dhyanas or meditations, the Buddha says that they are impermanent. This condition of meditation is impermanent. Doesn't mean it doesn't last forever. And therefore that is dukkha. And subject to change. Notice that the word dukkha is explicitly used. It is dukkha, not because there is suffering in the ordinary sense of the word. That means negative side of our life. But because whatever is impermanent is dukkha. Everything that is impermanent is dukkha. And everything is impermanent actually. So everything is dukkha. And according to early Buddhist scriptures, said there are 8 kinds of dukkha, and also another kind of categorization, 3 kinds of dukkha. And I think 8 kinds of dukkha is well known, so you may already know. The first 4 is, maybe I don't need to write, Shōrō Byoshi, birth, aging, sickness, and dying are first 4 dukkha within 8 kind of dukkha. And next 4 is I think it was here. Association with unpleasant persons and conditions. That means we have to meet with person we don't like. That is suffering. I think all of us understand and experience what this means. Even though we don't like this person, somehow we cannot, escape from this person. And another, next one is separation from beloved ones and present conditions. I think we also, all of us, experience this suffering or dukkha. Sometimes we have to, say goodbye to, beloved people, or we have to, or any present situation cease or end sometime, and we have to go back to the painful, not necessarily painful, but not so present reality. That is another kind of suffering or dukkha. And not getting what one desires, not getting what one desires, that is another kind of suffering. That is the seventh. And all those sevens are in Japanese called within another kind of a categorization of suffering into three kinds. In Japanese, the first is kuku. And second is eku. And third is gyoku. All those seven belongs to kuku or eku. Kuku means both repetition of the same word. That means dukkha of dukkha, or suffering of suffering. That is referred to, something we don't really want, and yet we have to go through. All those, birth, old age, sickness, and death, and separation with someone we love, or meeting with someone we hate. All those painful experience is included in this kuku. I think in this book, this is translated as ordinary suffering. And second kind is translated here. It said, a happy feeling, a happy condition in life is not permanent, not everlasting. It changes sooner or later. When it changes, it produces pain, suffering, and happiness. This vicissitude is included in dukkha as suffering produced by change. So in this book, this is called dukkha produced by change. Literally, this A means destruction. That something we want, something we like, something favorable will be destroyed sooner or later. So something painful or sorrow or something we don't like, come to us. That is the first type. And second part is something we like, we love, leave us. And
is the second kind like that we know it's going to leave, Like
Uh,
when we're enjoying it, but we know there's some things
well, in some cases we know it's eventually go, like our youth, we know. Sometimes it's leave us, but it's really do. But sometimes in some cases, some kind of very happy, favorable condition end suddenly without any expectation. So there are, I think, many different kinds. And the most difficult kind of dukkha is this last one. We understand, both, sometimes, not sometimes, always, or not always, but often. Often we go through difficult situation, so we experience pain and suffering and distress. And even though we enjoy certain situation or condition, but it will end, so we feel pain or sadness. So these two are very understandable, and we all experience. And when we use the word suffering, we only mean these two kinds. But the most important kind of suffering, or dukkha, in Buddhism is this gyoku. Gyo is a translation of Sanskrit or Pali word sankhara. And this is the same word with the fourth of five aggregates. In Japanese, Jews, Shiki, Jews, So, Gyo, Shiki. And this Gyo is the same Gyo that is Sankhara in Pali and Sanskara in Sanskrit. And this word, this is very kind of a vague word. We don't really know what this means. It seems it includes almost everything. Within five skandhas or five aggregate, everything beside material and sensation and perception and consciousness are included in gyo or sankhara or sanskara. That means almost everything happening in our mind. Thinking and making judgment and making decision or making choice, all and like and dislike, all of them included within this sanskara. And in Chinese, this is translated as gyo. Gyo means to go. To go means it's always changing. Let me read his explanation of this kind of suffering. But the third form of dukkha, as conditioned state, this person translates this sankhara as a conditioned state, is the most important philosophical aspect of the first noble truth. And it requires some analytical explanation of what we consider as a being, as an individual, or as I. So being as individual or being as I is itself suffering. What we call a being or an individual or I according to Buddhist philosophy, is only a combination of ever-changing physical and mental forces or energies, which may be divided into 5 groups or aggregates. So this being is a collection of 5 skandhas, and that is changing, that never stay without change. Elsewhere, he distinctly defined dukkha as a 5 aggregate. He means Buddha. O bhikkhus, what is dukkha? It should be said that it is the 5 aggregates of attachment. Here it should be clearly understood that dukkha and the 5 aggregate are not 2 different things. The 5 aggregates themselves are dukkha. We will understand this point better when we have some notion of the 5 aggregates, and he explained what 5 aggregates are, but I don't think we need to that explanation. But in Theravada tradition and also in Buddha, or Buddha himself said these 5 skandhas are themselves dukkha, and that is this gyok means, or the final dukkha in 8 sufferings or 8 dukkha is really, 5 skandhas are suffering. So these 5 skandhas are themselves suffering. We attach these 5 skandhas and cling this and grasp this as me, even though there's no such entity called me, doesn't exist. So this clinging to something which doesn't exist, and those 5 skandhas are just a collection of all different elements, and that is always changing. But when we grasp, we wish, or we hope, what we want, this doesn't change. We are looking for something permanent and we can rely on. But not only the things outside, but even our 5 skandhas, that means ourselves, are impermanent. And that is what dukkha means. So, as Okumura Roshi and Lafra both said, our existence, our life, our being itself is dukkha. Because we cannot, rely on. Sooner or later it's changed and we're lost. And there's no such things called we, which try to grasp. So this is a kind of a phantom or illusion. And because of this illusion, our life becomes dukkha or suffering. And another important part is that because these 5 skandhas are dukkha, these 5 skandhas have no self-nature, no fixed entity also. That means dukkha also has no self-nature. It's also impermanent. Doesn't mean that means it can be ceased. That is the very important point. That it can be ceased.
It can be ceased.
Because it's impermanent. Because it has no fixed, permanent self-nature. That's why dukkha can be transformed. This is the most important point of Buddhist teaching. But the part, everything is dukkha or everything is suffering is too much emphasized. So we kind of often miss this part of Buddha's teaching, because dukkha is also empty and impermanent and non-substantial. We can be released from dukkha. This possibility is, I think, most important part of Buddha's teaching. Otherwise, nirvana is not possible at all. If our existence, our being itself is suffering, there's no way to change. But because five skandha or our being has no fixed nature, we can be, not we, but it can be changed. It can be transformed. That means, we can practice and work toward the cessation of dukkha. This is really kind of a pivotal point of Buddha's teaching within Four Noble Truths. But often this point is overlooked, and people think Buddha taught everything is suffering. So finally, Lafra said, these five aggregates together, which we popularly call a being, are dukkha itself. There is no other being or I standing behind these five aggregates. So there's no fixed self-nature behind these five aggregates, who experiences dukkha. So there's no such person who experiences dukkha. Only dukkha are there. And that has no self-nature. So, as Buddha Gosa says, do you know Buddha Gosa? He's a very great Theravada Buddhist scholar monk who made a commentary on the Pali Sutras. And Buddha Gosa says, mere suffering exists, but no sufferer is found. And that these are, but no doer is found. I think this is really the same with what Nagarjuna said. Only, changing, movement or happening is there, or action is there, but no one who do the action. This movement is reality, but there's no such person, fixed person or Atman, which is doing that movement. And this is an important point. So, according to this, saying, Theravada teaching and Mahayana teaching are not so different. So there is no unmoving mover behind the movement. Nagarjuna discussed that there's no runner outside of the action of running. Same thing. It is only movement. It is not correct to say that life is moving. He said that is not correct to say that life is moving. But life is movement itself. When we say life is moving, that means life doesn't move. And this life that doesn't move is moving. Life and movement are not two different things. In other words, there is no thinker behind the thought. Thought itself is the thinker. If you remove the thought, there is no thinker to be found. Here, we cannot fail to notice how this Buddhist view is diametrically opposed to the Cartesian cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I exist. I think, therefore I am. Thought is there, but no one who is thinking. That is Buddhist view. So this, insight of emptiness or non-substantiality or egolessness or without self-nature of five skandhas is the, how can I say, not a cause, probably cause or reason that we can be liberated from dukkha. Because five skandhas have no fixed entity. Dukkha has no fixed entity. That's why we can change. We can, transform. And he said, it is extremely important to understand this first noble truth clearly because, as the Buddha says, he who sees dukkha sees also the arising of dukkha, sees also the cessation of dukkha, and sees also the path leading to the cessation of dukkha. So this seeing the emptiness of this dukkha or suffering is really important. Because of this, we can see, dukkha is arising and also cease. And there's a way or method to which lead us to the cessation of dukkha. This does not at all make the life of a Buddhist. I think this is interesting. This does not at all make, this means the teaching of dukkha. Everything is dukkha. This does not at all make the life of a Buddhist melancholy or sorrowful, as some people wrongly imagine. On the contrary, a true Buddhist is the happiest of beings. He has no fears or anxieties. He is always calm and serene and cannot be upset or dismayed by changes or calamities because he sees things as they are. So when we see the arising and how arising of dukkha and how dukkha works and how dukkha ceases, and we understand how we can practice that leads us to the cessation of dukkha, then our life becomes joyful. Not really a joyful in the way we gain something we want. But as he said, it's a calm and serene happiness, or what is the word?
Contentment?
Contentment.
Kind of a joyful contentment?
Yeah. Even though our desire is not fulfilled, still I don't feel something is lacking. I don't feel I have to chase after something to get, or I don't feel I have to escape from something. I can enjoy being right now, right here. And that is a cessation of suffering. And that is nirvana. The Buddha was never melancholy or gloomy. I think it's true. The Buddha was never melancholy or gloomy. He was described by his contemporaries as ever smiling, always smiling. In Buddhist painting and sculpture, the Buddha is always represented with a countenance happy, serene, contented, and compassionate. Never a trace of suffering or agony or pain is to be seen. Buddhist art and architecture, Buddhist temples, never give the impression of gloom or sorrow, but produce an atmosphere of calm and serene joy. And he also said, what is necessary is not anger or impatience, but the understanding of the question of suffering, how it comes about, and how to get rid of it, and then to work accordingly with patience, intelligence, determination, and energy. So,
What page is that on, Shohaku?
in this book, page 28. So this is his understanding, Lafla's understanding of the teaching of suffering as a first noble truth. So the meaning of this word suffering or dukkha is really different or much broader and deeper than the usual understanding we have about with this English word suffering. So we must be careful about it and really clearly understand what Buddha taught about suffering. Well, I think that is what Okumura Roshi wants to say. At least the same as what he is saying here. And I think it is missing. Well, since I have 10 more minutes, let me read his discussion about two truths again. I don't think this is very difficult. And this discussion about the two truths has something to do with the third truth, third dharma seal, that is, nothing is substantial. Okay. Okay. I think I can just read 2 pages, and I don't think it needs much explanation. I've mentioned that there are 2 types of realities, the one being accidental reality, and the other being undeniable reality. When you think about it, I myself am just an accidental reality. After all, there is nothing that says I had to be born in 20th century Japan. I could just as well have been born in ancient Egypt or Papua New Guinea, or indeed not have been born at all. In other words, being born in any age or in any place is a possibility. an accident, just as my being here right now is an accident. So there's no fixed, permanent reason that I have to be here right now, right here, as Shohaku, but somehow I'm here. From that, we can say then that all the things I see in my world and the world itself taking shape as I create it are also an accident. I don't understand this as I create it come from, because it's not there in this version. So this is addition. In create it is addition by probably Jisho. And there's a, yeah, I don't think Okumura Roshi create. And they make a end note, but it doesn't make sense to me. For example, perhaps I look out the window and see that the weather has cleaned up, so I think about what a nice day it is. But that is only because of where I happen to be. Somewhere else, it is surely raining right now, so in a broader sense, it isn't quite right to say that today is a clear day. After all, somewhere there are people who are getting rained on or snowed on, and somewhere else people must be laboring under a hot desert sun. Therefore, there's no reason to believe that only the things I see with my own eyes are absolutely or undeniably true. So even my existence is accident, and so my experience or my views are also accidental. So we cannot say this is all absolutely true. There is no way we can say that our way of looking at things is absolute. If you and I are sitting together, you may think that we are both looking at the same cup in front of us, but it's not true. You look at it from your angle and from your perspective, and I view it from mine. There is no ground for our saying that a fact we know or an idea we embrace is absolute. Consider all the weather satellites circling the Earth. From their positions, the whole world looks like a map, and cities like New York or Tokyo look like some sort of mold growing on the surface. So it looks like people are just living in the same sort of mold that grows on a piece of old cheese. Actually, in the previous version, it said old mochi, not cheese. Mochi means rice cake, pounded rice cake. So this is another work of Jisho. And it's okay. In this case, it's okay. But sometimes it's a problem. In that sense, I have no ground for saying that the world I see is everything, even weather satellites can show me that. If we look at a picture taken from the moon, the Earth appears to be nothing more than a little ball with some sort of white fuzz floating around it. In brief, everything I happen to see is an accident. So there's no absolute foundation to say that what I think, what I see, what I experience is true. And I don't understand what is the connection with this, discussion about suffering. Since my having been born in Japan in the 20th century is just an accident, it follows that I, sitting here and looking out the window in this room of this particular house, at the moment when I write these words, am nothing but an accident. I am only relative. I am not absolute. If I come to the conclusion that I am accidental, then naturally my thoughts are also accidental. Next paragraph. If both my mind and I, myself, are accidental, maybe the only thing remaining that could be called inevitable or absolute is God, capital G, God. That God must be absolute is the foundation for the rise of religions where only God can be true or real. Since we are nothing but things that have been created, we are just relative. The origin of this kind of religion thus begins with denial of oneself in favor of another, that is God. So in this paragraph, he is talking about, he said there are three types of approach to the life. One is chasing after, pursuing material happiness, and second is worshipping the absolute authority like God. And here he is saying, this actually refers to Christianity, and belief or faith in the religion like Christianity is negate the self and trust the God as authority, and that is why Dogen Zenji, not Dogen, I'm sorry, Okumura Roshi didn't want to or couldn't be a Christian. So this is a kind of discussion or explanation that he was not interested in, or he didn't agreed with the second approach of those three types of attitude toward life. So I don't think this discussion is about the second dharma seal. And next paragraph, the third way to approach life. So he's discussing about those three types of approaches toward life. The third way to approach life that I mentioned earlier says that because from an individual perspective, everything is relative or accidental, what should be relied on is abstract truth or logos, L-O-G-O-S, logos. This kind of truth, this is objective truth, not truth from my point of view, or subjective truth from based on observation from certain particular position, but objective truth that is like seeing the earth from the moon. Mm-hmm. And that is the third approach, seeking the truth in a philosophical or logical way. And this kind of truth is derived purely from human reason, or in Greek, nous, N-O-U-S. This is the foundation of Western philosophy. This kind of thought doesn't focus on the individual which has 5 skandhas and delusions and desires and lot of problems and conflict inside. But in this case, human beings become just a reason. But rather upon the whole of humanity as a kind of a concept. Though every member of humanity was born and dies, humanity as a whole doesn't die, because it's a concept. Well, actually it will eventually, with the end of the earth or before, but humanity has been around for over 50,000 years and will probably be around for another 50,000. In other words, it wasn't born in a certain sense and won't die, because this kind of humanity is a concept. The academic world does not take up the problem of things coming into being and dying. I'm not sure this is really true or not. Rather, but I don't have time to discuss about it today. Rather, what it takes up is humankind as a phenomenon that has not born and won't die. I'm not sure this is what Okumura Roshi really said or not, because phenomenon is something which is born and which die. So I don't really understand this English sentence. And I don't think Okumura Roshi said this. However, to view things from that perspective entails coming to the realization that when I die, I will be abandoned by truth. So this kind of truth is nothing to do with that self that is be born and live and die, with going through many difficulties and problems and thinking. So he didn't, how can I say, continue to go the path of, intellectual thinking as a philosopher, or continue to study Western philosophy as the way to, discover the truth he was looking for. So this is what he's discussing in last 2 pages. So I don't think this has something to do with the second, dharma seal, that is suffering. But as I said, in the beginning of this lecture, because I think Jisho want to make some connection with second dharma seal and this discussion, she added, by accepting and properly understanding the true nature of both accidental and undeniable reality, and by living in accord with this understanding, the matter of living and dying will cease to be such a terrible problem. And this is not in this version. So I have a question about the method to make this kind of book. I mean, cut and paste method of making a book. I mean, at least we must be really careful what Okumura Roshi really said, and what something is twisted or lost or added by the editor or translator. In this case, this is a translation. Well, So I think I finished the second Dharma seal in this book. And this is end of the 5-day community retreat. I hope you enjoy this retreat. I enjoyed, even though I suffered. So suffering and enjoyment can be together. And I'm going to continue to talk on this book on Sunday Dharma talks, Sunday morning Dharma talks, and probably next community retreat in April next year. I think I can finish this book until April next year. So this suffering and enjoyment continue for a long time. I hope you enjoy it. I think I suffer, but I hope you enjoy it. I really appreciate your, participation. Even though we have very small group, I like practice with small group, but I can also enjoy to practice with a little bigger group. But anyway, I appreciate all of your sincere practice, study, and work, especially Tenzo Corin's wonderful cooking. This month I'm going to be quite busy. On Tuesday I'm going to North Carolina, and coming back on next Monday. I'm going to Japan on one day after, and coming back on 28th. And November Genzoe start a few days after that. So until Genzoe is over, I'll be very busy. And also, I'm not sure if Yuko mentioned that or not, but Yuko and Masaki are also going to Japan. I think they are going to leave on 23rd and coming back, I think, during the Genzoe retreat, because Yuko's mother wants her to come to visit her. Yuko's mother is living by herself and she needs some help. So I'll be out of town almost half a month, and my family are also gone. So please take care of this building and our practice. Great. Please enjoy. Okay, thank you anyway. So we are going to have lunch with discussion or meeting.
Yeah.
So after this lecture, we have Soji cleaning up, and meeting start 11:30 or so.
That's the plan.
Outside,
Schedules.
and you are going to leave 12.
Right, I'll take you.
So before you are leaving, we will have lunch.